Well, hopefully we can answer these and lots more questions as I'm joined today by Janine Ratcliffe of Olive, Jack Luke of Bike Radar, and first up, Lucy Bellamy of Gardeners Illustrated. Hello, Lucy. How are you?
I'm really well, Tim. How are you?
I'm all right. You're not in your garden. I thought you'd be in a garden.
I'd like to. I'm getting out at lunchtime, so that's really nice. Obviously, enjoying the weather and things like that. Seeing a lot more of my garden than I normally do, so I can't complain
Yeah.
about
Well,
that.
I mean, it's been perfect garden weather, isn't it, for the last month or so, really? And it seems like there's more of it to come. So, what can people get up to in their gardens at the moment? What should they be doing with the extra time
Um,
on their hands?
Well, what I've been doing is concentrating on growing things to eat, and there's still time to kind of sow seeds and get some really great things going in your garden that are kind of really quick turnaround and that you can enjoy. And I think what's great about growing your own foods is that you can concentrate on growing the best possible things to eat. So it's best to concentrate on things that have amazing flavour, much better than you would buy in the shops. So that could be something like tomatoes, which have got kind of sweet, complex flavours, or crisp, crunchy French beans. And I'm choosing things that are kind of immeasurably different in the flavour to what I could buy, but also I'm concentrating on things that you can't buy in the shop. So that's things like if I'm sowing pea seeds for peas that will come later, you can pinch out the tips of them and add them to your salad. And that's the sort of thing that it's quite difficult to buy at any time, but it can kind of really lift the food that you're eating, make it a lot more exciting.
Yeah, it sounds delicious. I know a lot of people are growing their own vegetables this year, so it's good to get some tips on that. I mean, if I'm stuck at home and can't get else, what else is there that I could be doing right now in my with my garden?
Well, the other thing that we've been kind of thinking about at Gardens Illustrated is we all know about people growing flowers for cutting or buying cut flowers, and lots of people know about growing house plants. But we've been looking at an idea, a historical idea, which is about creating sustainable displays, where you combine house plants, so things that you've already got in your house, maybe ferns, that kind of thing, with cut flowers. And we've asked some of our contributors to create these, what are known as pot of fleur, whereby you create a display of your houseplants and then you supplement it with cut flowers. I mean, it's a kind of really, an economical, quite a thrifty way of using cut flowers. So you don't need many, even if you've only got one or two things to cut in your garden, say. And it lasts for ages because your house plants just go on existing, but you can replace spent blooms with fresh ones. And it sounds quite a kind of a bit of a questionable thing to do. You imagine how that would look, but some of the things that our brilliant head gardeners have been creating are inspired by things like walks in country lanes and using cow parsley with evergreens and things like that. So it's kind of a kind of cooler and more contemporary take on quite a traditional idea.
So you can bring a little bit of the garden into your home to cheer you up whilst you're sitting on Zoom calls all day doing your business. So I mean, a lot of people traditionally probably get their inspiration from visiting, gardens of manor houses and national trust properties and things like that. What other you mentioned country lanes there, but how else could people be inspired of what to do with their garden in a time where we can't get out as much?
Well, obviously, a lot of big public gardens are closed to the public at the moment, although the National Trust have just suggested that this is yet to be confirmed, but it looks like that during June, some of the big National Trust gardens are going to start to open to visitors, so that's going to be great. But one of the kind of real treasures of lockdown, if you like, is that lots of amazing gardens that normally people don't have access to and that are behind closed gates have filmed virtual tours of what's happening there. And so we've created at Gardens Illustrated a selection of virtual tours, and we've got some really amazing ones. So there's one at the Garden of Highgrove, which is obviously the private residence of His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall. And it's a really inspiring garden with a great emphasis on sustainability. And we also spoke to his head gardener about Prince Charles's favourite plants, and she shared them with our readers, which was really interesting. But there's also kind of private designers' gardens. There's Iford Manor. There's Sissinghurst. So gardens that you might ordinarily be able to visit. You can kind of get a real sense of what's happening now on a day-to-day basis, but also get real insights from all the head gardeners who are obviously still working there, albeit with social distancing.
Wow, well, fantastic tips. I think I'm going to immediately after this go and recreate Highgrove in my back garden.
It's quite quirky, and it involves quite a lot of statues of Prince Charles. So I just put that out there.
Luckily, I've already got plenty of statues of Prince Charles in my house.
Okay.
Just need to move them outside. Lucy, thank you very much for that. There's lots for people to think about in their garden this weekend. Next, we're going to move on to Janine Ratcliffe from Olive. How are you, Janine?
I'm good, thanks, Tim. Hi.
It's good to see you again. The weather is hotting up, and it's barbecue season is upon us now. At the moment, of course, the rules state that we can't have lots of people around to have barbecues, which is what many would traditionally do in this weather. Is it worthwhile as still, throwing some coal on the barbecue, or in my case, turning the gas canister on?
We've got a fancy barbecue then.
Yes, so there's a big debate, isn't there, about whether or not that's really barbecuing, but I tell you what, it's a lot easier.
It's easier. Yeah, I think definitely. It's actually National Barbecue Week. You know how in the food world we have a week every week, barbecue week.
It's a week for every week.
Chip week, fish week. It's barbecue week this week, and we've got the weather here as well to back it up. I think with barbecuing as well, it's more about the ritual, isn't it? I mean, everyone who doesn't like sort of stand around a barbecue, poking a sausage, drinking a cold beer, talking rubbish. So it's a really nice thing to do. So I think if you, sorry, my dog's trying to get on me. So basically, if you think about the size of your barbecue and the amount of people you've got, you normally barbecue for a crowd. So recipes for like 6 or 8 people can be easily scaled down. If you've got a large barbecue, think about the barbecue area and think about how much you need for, say, the 2 or 3 of you that are in the house, or, if you're a family, the 4 of you. You might only need half the barbecue, and you can use that, and your barbecue will work fine. I've been doing barbecuing all week because I've been doing recipe testing for a July issue. And what I've been getting are those bags of instant light barbecue. You get the bag and you sort of just light the corners.
Cheating, isn't it? That's cheating.
It is cheating, but you know what? It's the first year I've had like a proper garden, and I've literally just got a barbecue, and I had to get it done. And I had this big professional briquette thing, and then it said you need a chimney, and I didn't have a chimney, and I was like, what am I going to do? So I got one of those bags. And for me and my husband, I managed to do a really good 45 minutes worth of cooking, and with no fuss. Did it. We sat down, we ate, and just cleaned it all out afterwards. So it's a good enough first thing. I think one thing that people should probably avoid if they can is those instant barbecues, because they're not great in terms of how long they actually last for. You might only get, some of them aren't very good quality. You might only get like 15 minutes of cooking, maybe even less. So you're a bit limited about what you can do. And also you're left with all the waste afterwards, which we don't want. In terms of what you can cook, if there's just a few of you, something like skewers are amazing, like kebab skewers, because you can portion it. So you're just making 1 or 2 skewers. You can make meat, fish, vegetable. So you can use things like, steak, salmon, halloumi cheese. Or
I do a halloumi kebab, yeah. I like halloumi.
I love a halloumi kebab. If you're vegan, marinated mushrooms, like those giant mushrooms, and stick them through a couple of skewers and grill them are fantastic. And then if you just like assemble some flatbread, salad, maybe a bit of hummus, a bit of hot sauce, and then everyone can sit down and enjoy, whichever one that they want. But we've got tons of those on olivemagazine.com, recipes for skewers. So
wait to have a barbecue in my recreation of Highgrove estate later on. It's going to be fantastic.
Do it.
This week it's been revealed, and I very much agree with this, that Britain's favourite snack is cheese on toast.
Yeah.
which I mean, I'm sure that there's no debate. Of course, it is. It's delicious and nutritious, but some might say not the healthiest choice. Is there anything a bit lighter that people could be snacking on?
There is, Tim. I thought about you when I was putting together these because I know you love a vegetable. So what I've got for you, first
Not
of
so
all,
much a cauliflower. We've talked about
not
this
a cauliflower, yeah, but I've got you a cousin of the cauliflower, the kale
Oh, I
crisps.
do like a bit of kale. Yeah,
Have you ever tried kale crisps?
I have had kale crisps. Yeah, they're very
Yeah.
nice.
So let me tell you that you can go into a shop and buy them, like premium kale crisps for about £1.50 for a bag, or you can make loads of them at home. Really easy. All you do is you get your kale, take off the woody stalks because they're not very nice, the really, really woody bits. Toss them in a tiny bit of olive oil, spread them out on a baking sheet, and then you bake them at quite a low temperature. Again, we've got a recipe online for the details. And they go super crisp. And then you can sprinkle over just sea salt, or you can do like a mix of sea salt, smoked paprika, cumin, curry powder, any kind of flavorings that you really like. And what they remind me of is, do you remember on Chinese takeaways when you got that deep fried seaweed?
Very much
That
so.
kind
Yeah.
of melt in the mouth texture. They're exactly like that. So that's a good one. Something a bit more sophisticated for your palate is
You know me, bit of a culture vulture.
something you can enjoy with a glass of chilled sherry in your garden under your statue of Prince Charles. Go and buy a nice big tub of olives, unflavoured ones, so they'll be a little bit cheaper. Something mellow though, like a buttery green olive or maybe Kalamata olive, and then you get a nice big wide frying pan, warm a bit of olive oil, add flavourings like fennel, garlic, chili flakes, anything like that, and you just gently warm the olives through in the oil, and then put them into a nice little fancy bowl and sit and snack on them. So I think that's a really nice one for and a quick one for kids, freezing stuff. So freezing, instant instant cheap ice cream. Freeze anything, just freeze them. But sections of banana that you skewer and freeze, like instant lollipop. Watermelon wedges, hard to say, easy to eat. Are great for kids. Adults, you can sprinkle a bit of vodka on there as well before you freeze them. It's a bit of it. And then grapes, whole grapes are fantastic frozen as well as a little snack. So there's some.
My
good
children
ones.
enjoy milk ice cubes.
Oh well, is that like a mini milk when you have a mini milk ice cream?
Yeah, and sometimes we run out of milk. There's still some in the freezer, and we put them in tea.
I mean, look, you're living that life, aren't
I'm
you?
living the dream. Now, Janine, we must move on, or else everyone will hear
sorry.
even more about my exciting domestic life. Let's talk bread. Sourdough's been a big thing, but what's the latest bread craze?
Okay, the latest thing is focaccia, believe it or not. Again, lovely to say, focaccia. Yeah, focaccia's back. I think it's super simple. It's super easy. It's not like, you don't have to wrestle with it. You literally just make it flatten it out in a tin. This is not a healthy bread because to make the authentic focaccia, once it's proven, you dibble all the top of it and add loads and loads of olive oil. And the nice thing about it is it's you can flavour it up any way you like. So, the classic would be lots of rosemary and sea salt. But you can also add things like chopped olives, cherry tomatoes, all sorts of veg and garlic, and it's just just really, really forgiving. And I think that's going to be the next big veg craze.
And with my focaccia, I will of course need a Thirsty Thursday drink, which I'm sure you've got one to recommend.
I've got two. I've got jug cocktails, Tim. Jug cocktails in a jug basically. Cocktails. So
I knew you wouldn't let us down, Janine.
No. Because it's hot and you need something long to drink. You don't want to be drinking your little, whiskey old fashions like you're in Mad Men. You want your long drink with your eco straw. No plastic straws here. First one I've got is a white port and pink grapefruit cooler. Now, last year, white port and tonic was really big. It was a really trendy drink, and it is delicious. And this just uses a jug of ice, a good measure about white port. I think it's about 300 mils, and then topped up with, you know, you can get fancy tonics now. You can get really good pink grapefruit tonic. So that's just fill that up with tonic and add sections of pink grapefruit as well, just to make your jug look pretty. And my second one is a cider mimosa, which makes use of one of our national drinks, cider. Just thought since we're all out in the park drinking, then we might as well embrace our, you know, our national drink. So this is a way to kind of jazz up your cider. So you would take a nice dry sort of light cider like Asphal's or something, not very strong cider. Again, in a jug with ice, adding some nice orange juice, but preferably the one without the bits, because otherwise the bits float to the top a bit, I think. And then when you pour it into a glass, you just add a little splash of grenadine, and you just get that kind of lovely separation between the pink and the orange. So it looks fancy. So
sounds delicious. I think it'll go very well with my kale crisps. Janine, it's a pleasure as always. Thank you for all of those tips on what we should eat and drink over the weekend. And finally, I'm joined by Jack Luke from Bike Radar. Hi, Jack. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Enjoying the sunny weekend I've got waiting for me on my bike.
Excellent. Well, it's you know, cycling weather, and of course the rules have allowed much more cycling now. So how would you suggest planning a cycling route for those who are looking to get out this weekend?
Well, much like everybody who's decided they want to bake a sourdough, it's very much a beginner's game, cycling at the minute. And I would suggest for those of you who are just getting out to their first time maybe on a bike in a long time, my number one thing to recommend when you first start is to be realistic. You know, it's very tempting to imagine yourself, you know, chasing horizons for many hours at a time. But realistically, if you haven't been on a bike in a long time, you're going to be a bit out of practice in terms of your fitness. If you haven't, you know, it is lockdown after all. We can all be forgiven for not being as active as before. But also just the actual mechanics of using the bike. If you haven't been on one in a long time, don't be afraid to take things slow and keep things very local, because realistically, one, you will have even forgotten how to do something, or two, your bike will be a little bit worse for wear. So don't set yourself a huge goal for your first ride this weekend. And secondly, I'd really recommend that although you shouldn't feel pressured by any means to wear your kind of, yes, your Lycra kit, definitely if you've got a longer goal in mind, there is no substitute for proper cycling kit. With that said, I would not discourage anyone from taking your normal sportswear for your local ride, but if you are going to be going for a longer ride or have a bigger goal in mind, investing in some kit is definitely worth doing. And I should say as well that in recent years, good quality cycling kit from brands like DHB or your kind of Decathlon stuff has gotten a lot cheaper and a lot better. You know, in my time cycling, it's the one thing I could really pinpoint as being, you know, really improving in recent years. And I'd also say plan your route accordingly as well. There's loads of great tools out there. Google Maps even is, you know, one of the simplest, but it has really good base mapping for cycling, and normally it will be able to highlight local off-road cycling routes. So that's a really good place to start. But other apps such as Strava, Komoot, and Ride with GPS, kind of dedicated cycling apps, do give you a little bit more information, and some of them will even give you kind of advice from locals on where you should ride. So that's where I would start.
Okay, that sounds good. I was just looking up how far it is to Highgrove from my house. I think I might need some Lycra. How do you, you know, a lot of people are going to be cycling for the first time, and we're being encouraged to cycle to work, those who need to go to work. How does the Cycle to Work scheme work for those who are looking to use it?
So the Cycle to Work scheme, there's loads of different providers, but in short, the Cycle to Work scheme allows you to buy a bike, paying it through monthly installments, and you pay those monthly installments tax-free. So they come out as salary sacrifice before you pay your tax or national insurance. Now, it really depends on the bike you're going for, the scheme, your employer, but if you have the most generous scheme possible, you can save up to 42% off the cost of a bike, which is pretty massive. It's definitely a more complex subject. We've got a really good guide on it on bikeradar.com, but you know, you really can make some significant savings. The one thing that has changed significantly in recent years is previously you had a £1,000 limit on a bike. Now that sounds like a lot of money, and it will get you a sensationally good bike, but kind of getting rid of that £1,000 limit has also opened up the opportunity for people to buy e-bikes. Now, e-bikes are not cheating. If I was doing a longer commute and I really wanted to arrive at work in as much style and as cool as possible, I would be considering an e-bike. So the Cycle to Work scheme will cover those now as well. But the best thing to do is to find out what scheme your employer uses. I should say as well, if you're a self-employed or a sole trader, you can actually go through Cycle to Work schemes with certain providers. I know Green Commute Initiative certainly does that. So speak to your employer, have a look for the terms and conditions, and head to bikeradar.com for the best advice we can give.
Always head to bikeradar.com. Always. So for those who are not looking to buy a new bike and use that scheme, but they're looking for a second-hand bike, what are the things they should look out for, and what are the things that they should avoid when they see a second-hand bike?
I think, second-hand bikes, we're seeing a lot more interest in this now because everybody's decided they're a cyclist now. New bikes are actually hard to come by in some places. So for second-hand bikes, I think the key thing you can do is ask questions. You want to know, when was this bike last serviced? How long have you had it? Do you have the receipt? Can you see things like the serial number? The biggest questions, the biggest worries people have is, number one, actually, is the bike stolen? And if you can get a serial number, you can check against databases, certainly here in the UK, which will log stolen bikes. And that's kind of your due diligence you should really do to begin with. And if you know it's not been stolen, you can kind of go in with a little bit more trust to say the least. But the key things to ask are, when was it last serviced? If it's never been serviced, realistically, there's probably going to be quite a lot of cost involved with getting it back up and running. Bikes have wear items and wear components, and you don't want to buy yourself into an absolute nightmare. And also, if the pictures, and this is a key thing, if the pictures aren't really up to scratch and you can't see too much detail, ask for more. Check the bike looks like it's in good nick as well. If the photos aren't really giving you all the detail, that should be a real warning sign as well. And if you go as far to go and see the bike, obviously observing social distancing regulations, look for really obvious things like, is the paint still in good nick? Is it clean? It will give you a hint as to whether or not the bike's being cared for. And also, lastly, I definitely would suggest make sure you go for the right size. If it's your first ever bike and you're buying it from a bike shop, someone is going to be able to help you to get you on the right size bike. If it's your first bike and you're buying it secondhand, make sure you do your research beforehand, because the kind of heat of the moment and wanting to get away and finish the sale, you can often be led into maybe not the best decision. So do your research in terms of sizing, and that would be really it for me. I've got plenty of bikes secondhand in the past. I've always had good experiences. You shouldn't be put off by it, but it definitely pays to do your research.
Remind me, Jack, where would people want to go if they wanted to find out more about second-hand bikes?
There's a really leading multidisciplinary website called bikeradar.com, where we recently published a guide called The Complete Guide to Buying a Used Bike. And that'll give you all the gossip you need.
That's everything you need to know about bikes, Bike Radar. Jack, thank you very much for your time. And thank you to all my guests today, and for everyone who's been watching at home. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. Let us know in the comments if you've got any feedback or suggestions. Please be nice. We hope to see you again next week. So stay safe and get inspired.